Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Wednesday afternoon. Big deal happening in the NBA. So we will get into some talk about Dame Lillard being traded and not to the team he wanted to go to. We'll get into all of that. A little bit more talk about the Cowboys in the NFL. Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day. And don't worry, plenty more talk about Texas and Kansas coming up in the 6 o'clock hour as well. Jerry Hamilton called in the hook him up this morning, talking Texas recruiting. We'll play you some of that too. Real good stuff on Texas recruiting coming up, all on the show today. And of course, you guys on the text line. And if you didn't hear already, we're switching over to a new text line number for everybody. So if you want to keep texting in, we're trying to do things. We're trying to improve on what we're doing. And there's the new text line number we have is a new service that's allowing us to do a lot more cool things with the text line that we're looking forward to doing, and more access and be able to have it remotes and things like that. 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the new text line number. We'll still be able to see the other one for a little bit, but we're changing over everybody to 512-447-3776. And if you guys have a nickname that you want to put on there, send in the nickname with it, and we'll try and get those on before the end of the night. So we can, when you guys text in, we can have more of a relationship. I can know who you are. It's not just a number that pops up on a screen. I'll be able to give you a name, but I want a little explanation of the name. I don't like just giving you a name. So you send in the name and then send in the reason, and then, and then we'll label you on the new system so we know, and so I can talk to you, and we can get you going. The new text line number, 512-447-3776 is the new text line. So, yeah, send us in your nickname, why you want that nickname. We'll get to Patrick's Big Fat Poll. We'll get that on there as well. Of course, though, the big news of the day that broke a few hours ago, especially for a guy like me who was a big basketball fan who's been covered the NBA starting in 2001, 2002 is when I started covering the NBA. So this is big news. And it's a big precedent set in the world of player empowerment. Damian Lillard, if you have not heard, Damian Lillard, who demanded a trade out of Portland, all reports were he wanted to go to Miami. There was the report that his agent was telling any team that was calling to trade for him that he was not going to ever play in any other team and not going to suit up for anybody else except for the Miami Heat, that the Trailblazers were stuck into having to make that trade work. They did not do that. They traded him to the Milwaukee Bucks. Damian Lillard is a Milwaukee Buck. He has tweeted out since this that he is excited for the next chapter. So as of right now, it seems that he's ready to go and play in Milwaukee, join up with the Greek Freak Giannis, and build that. We'll get to that. The trade is Bucks get Damian Lillard. The Blazers get Jrue Holiday, who they are now talking about moving. They don't necessarily want to end. We'll get to that too. DeAndre Ayton from the Suns, who the Suns have been trying to move now for a little while. He's never quite meshed with that team, what they want to do, the new look of the team. The new ownership wasn't a fan of DeAndre Ayton. He moves over. He is now on the Blazers getting a fresh start. Toumani Camara, who the Suns drafted, we're very excited about as a rookie. He is now shifted over to Blazers, get another rookie there, a 2029 unprotected pick, and a 28 and 2020 and a 2030 pick swap. Pick swaps are pretty good if the team is bad, but you're playing a guessing game that you're going to be a better team than them. If you're not, you basically get nothing for that pick swap. Just kind of goes away. You don't get a swap. You're not going to swap picks if they have the worst pick. But you're trading for a Milwaukee team that you believe Giannis will be gone in 5, 6, 7 years, or he won't be at the same level, and the team will be much worse. You will be picking it up because you got these young guys. So I get it. Not a bad trade. Suns also get Yusuf Nurkic to replace DeAndre Ayton, a guy that is a much more team-friendly player. At least Damian Lillard always loved playing with him. Get them into a system, and he may fit a little bit better with this Suns team, what they want to do. Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson, the Suns are able to add a little depth to a team that is pretty thin after they basically traded everyone away to get Kevin Durant, to get Bradley Beal in there, to go along with Devin Booker. They're adding a little bit more depth everywhere else. Of course, we mentioned the Blazers did get Jrue Holiday in this trade. Some people are wondering why Chris Middleton was not involved in the trade instead of Jrue Holiday. A couple reasons. One, people want Jrue Holiday. He's a really good player. He's a little bit older. I believe he's 33 years old. He has a year left on his contract as natural and then a player option for 2024. So, depending on where you send him, he may opt out after this year, and, you have to either give him a new contract or he'll be gone in free agency anyway. Chris Middleton just signed a new deal, but, for the money that he would be getting paid, I'm not sure a ton of teams really wanted to go out on that limb and go take a Chris Middleton and not, give up a bunch of pieces for a Chris Middleton. I don't think he had the value that Drew Holiday has of a guy who can really help your team. And also, technically, he can't be traded yet because he just signed the new deal. So I don't believe he can be traded yet either. But the Blazers do get – but Drew Holiday, on the other hand, is one of those guys that has a lot of value. And I kind of thought the Blazers might want to keep him, but the Blazers said they're going to stick to this young lineup. The Blazers now feel pretty good. They have a young lineup. Scoot Henderson's going to be at guard. Anthony Simons will be at the 2 guard. You have Nasir. You have now DeAndre Ayton in that lineup as well. They feel pretty good about the lineup. Portland feels pretty happy with a young core. I think they're still a small forward short. They still have Shaedon Sharpe on this roster. Jeremy Grant is the power forward. Shaedon Sharpe is a guy they like who may be able to get in there. But I think that the Bucks that Blazers get a pretty decent deal. They're able to get some decent things now. You don't want to make that trade with Miami, because if you make the trade with Miami, you basically you're getting too many picks that are too close to what you're trading. So you're still going to be that Miami will still be a decent team when you're getting their picks in some of this deal, because that's all that Miami has to offer, and it doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't help you. You want those picks down the road. If you're trading away a star player, you want to wait till they're bad and then get those picks. So that makes more sense where they're getting there. They also are able to not add on another player that they feel kind of mimics what Scoot Henderson wants to do. That they want to be kind of you may want to try and go get somebody else. And I think that's Drew Holiday. They want to get a different guy. I love Drew Holiday, but I get why they want to go to a different position. I think they'd like to get a small forward into this lineup, and I'll get into that in a second too, of where I think a Drew Holiday might go. But let's go into just this trade first before we move on to that. The trade right now, who's a winner and losers in this trade? I think everybody comes out pretty good in this trade. It's one of those trades that right now, on paper, seems pretty good. The Blazers didn't get screwed. You're not going to get the best deal when a player demands a trade out, but you didn't get screwed in this deal. Depending on what you get for Drew Holiday, you're not completely screwed out of it. You get a DeAndre Ayton to try and reclaim and figure out what he's going to be able to do. You take a little bit more pressure off of him right off the bat, because he's not on a team that's competing for a title right away, where everything is so scrutinized, and he's the one guy who's unproven on a roster. So he's just getting so much flack. I think that's going to help out DeAndre Ayton's progress a little bit. I don't know if Chauncey Billups is going to be the guy to do it, but I think that you have a lot of guys going in the right direction if you're Portland. And depending on what you get for Drew Holiday, which we'll get to in a second, then I think there's a lot that could be good going for Portland going forward. And this is a team that is now at least a play-in team, if not a playoff team. And in 2 years is definitely a playoff team, I think, as Scoot Henderson develops and gets more used to the speed of the game. The Bucks get Damian Lillard. All the talk this offseason, when people don't have anything to talk about in NBA circles, has been, is Giannis going to be in Milwaukee for long? They've asked Giannis, and he says, I love Milwaukee, but I want to win. New York is going after Giannis. Everybody wants Giannis. Miami wants Giannis in a few years. Everybody wanted Giannis and was basically waiting out his contract, hoping that he would say the Blazers didn't do enough, and I get, it's not like Damian Lillard is a young man, but Drew Holiday is also a 33-year-old player. So if you say in 2 or 3 years, Drew Holiday is now even older. Chris Middleton is re-signed, but he may never reach that same potential that he had early on. Brook Lopez is going to continue to get older. Now, when you're having to rebuild, did you get that other ring? Were you able to get that other ring? So you may not even be able to keep Giannis too much longer. He may sign another 1 or 2 year deal after this, but can you get another ring if you're Milwaukee? Can you go in there and steal another one? And if you look right now in the East, for Milwaukee, for them to make this deal, they understand that if with a healthy Giannis, which they lost in the playoffs, he got hurt in the playoffs, that's one of the reasons why they got knocked out. Not the only reason. They had some full holes this year, but I don't think giving up Grayson Allen, Nasir, is going to hurt them too much. Drew Holiday is a loss, but you put in Damian Lillard. So you got to figure out some defense. You're going to have to get some defense from some other people, but that offense is going to be much higher powered. You're not going to have those gaps. You're not going to be able to double off of Damian Lillard at all. So now if you're doubling off and you hit another guy, like who are you going to leave open in this offense? Chris Middleton? Damian Lillard? If you're doubling down onto Giannis, Brooks Lopez can hit a three-pointer. Pat Connaughton will probably be your third starter. He can hit a three-pointer. So if everybody can shoot threes and you have Giannis in there, who do you double off, which leaves Giannis in one-on-one matchups, which he can dominate. So I feel pretty good about this Milwaukee team. They feel like they're at least a front runner in the East. Boston, we know had a little bit of troubles. They make the Kristaps Porzingis trade. Marcus Smart is out. Can they play any defense next year? Is Kristaps Porzingis going to be able to stop Giannis? Is anybody on that team going to be able to stop Giannis? Philadelphia, we know it still has a Harden situation ongoing that he says he's never playing on a Daryl Morey team again, but they can't get any trade value for him. Cleveland is on the up, but I don't know if they don't have that player yet. Darius Garland isn't that guy yet, or Evan Mobley isn't that guy yet. New York can get all the Villanova players they want. They're not at that level yet. Brooklyn's not that level. So who in the East? And look, Miami had the run last year, but they didn't, they lost some players in free agency. I don't think Miami's that guy. So Milwaukee is now the front runner in the East. And then it goes over to, do you think the Lakers and LeBron rebound? Does AD come out and play a better season? Does the Christian Watts, does that work out for you? Are you able to build on that? Does Denver come out and, look, you could have that matchup in the finals. Jokic versus Giannis, Murray versus Lillard. Who wouldn't pay to see that? So I get why they did it. I think the Bucks had to make a move. You have to go for it in the NBA. When you see that window's open, especially in the East, that the Philadelphia is down, that Boston doesn't know what they're doing, everybody's making moves. To stand pat might have been a problem to keep Giannis. I think this buys you 2 or 3 more years, so I like it for the Bucks. I like it for the Blazers. You didn't get screwed. You got decent draft capital, but you didn't really want that. You wanted some young players. You get a DeAndre Ayton. You get a Drew Holiday, you'll be able to see who you flip that into. Toumani Camara is another player you're going to be able to put in this lineup. Going to get playing time. It fits that small forward role that you're kind of weak at. You got some power forwards. You got some guards. You don't necessarily have a lot of small forwards, so it fits into that. And the Suns get to move off DeAndre Ayton, which is what they wanted to do. You got to see if it works out with Nurkic. You bring a little bit more depth. Grayson Allen will bring in good depth to that team. I'm not a fan of Grayson Allen. Think he's one of the dirtiest players in the league. Not a fan. But I know he can add some help there. Nasir Little, Keon Johnson kind of throw-ins in this trade. You need depth. They've signed a lot of, minimum contract guys. These are guys who may get a little bit of playing time, see if they can show up for the Suns. I don't think there's a loser in this trade. If you want to say out and out winner, it's a team like Milwaukee having 2 of the best players in the NBA on their team. A small market team was able to pull off a trade, and now they have Giannis and Damian Lillard, two generational talents, 2 guys that have both been top 3, top 5 players in the NBA at one point in their career. And they're going to be able to go and play together. That's a huge deal. That the Bucks in Milwaukee have been able to pull that off. So if you're a Green Bay Packers fan, you're mad Aaron Rodgers gone. Jordan Love is playing good. This happens. You're a pretty good fan up in that Green Bay, Milwaukee area right now, if you're a sports fan up there. Now let's get into Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is now being shopped as well. 33 years old, last year of his contract before his player option, which he can get out of if he wants. He can take it if he wants to stay. Depending on the situation, though, you kind of have to talk to him. So teams are going to have to reach out to Drew Holiday and see his interest in coming there, or else they know, hey, basically we're paying a decent amount of money, a decent amount of capital. Because if what the Trailblazers showed in this trade is true, they're looking for young players. They don't want to play the draft lottery game. They don't want to hope that you're bad and get a guy right now. They have enough. They have those guys up and down the roster. They just traded Nasir Little. They just traded Keon Johnson. They have those guys that are kind of in there and maybe okay, maybe not. Shaedon Sharpe they like, but he didn't even really crack the starting lineup last year, and that's a guy that was a higher draft pick. So they would not. I think they are looking more for players. And so, as a Spurs fan, I like the idea of looking and seeing if maybe, the Spurs, they had talked about Chris Paul or talked about maybe a veteran point guard to help out. They did re-sign Trey Jones, but you say maybe you want a veteran point guard to help the development of Wembanyama. I think Drew Holiday is the perfect fit for that build. He has played with a genetically freakish talent in Giannis. He has won a championship, so Chris Paul is not done. He is a great defensive player. He's a great team player. I think he helps out you a lot. So if you have something that's not too much, you're not giving up one of your starters, you're not giving up Keldon or Vassell. I don't think they'd want Sohan, so that's not even that's a non-starter. I don't think they want him because they do have Jeremy Grant on that team. So if you trade one of them, you're not trading one of them. Does it go down into Malachi Branham and maybe somebody like that, or another piece in a draft pick down the road? You got some more draft picks, you got some draft capital you can move around. Do you go make that deal? Do the Spurs go after that? Do they look? I think I'd make the phone call. I don't know. And then I think a deal that we know Miami, that's one that is now they lost out on Dame, but apparently they're in the Drew sweepstakes. They still want a point guard on that team. So now do you revisit Tyler Hero and say we can put Tyler Hero in that small forward position, add some scoring? Or do you say we lost, we need some defense? We got Scoot Henderson, but he's not going to be the best defender right away. He's okay. He's trying, but he's a little smaller. Anthony Simons 6'3", maybe a little bit more size. Do we go call Toronto, who was calling about Damian Lillard, and see if they want Jrue Holiday? If they want a guy to go help out and play with Pascal Siakam, and we go and try and make a trade for OG Anunoby. Do we get OG Anunoby in this team in Portland and put him in the small forward position and bring in a guy who's, an okay three-point shooter, really is a good defender, great team would put him in, 27 years old, 26, 27 years old. Do you bring him into this Portland team? That's one for me. That's an interesting one. I think that there's winners. I don't think there's a winner if you trade with Miami. So I think this is a better trade all around for all three teams involved than if you would have tried to do anything with Miami. I never heard a Miami trade scenario where it worked out, where you were able to get everybody a winner. Now, we're still incomplete on this because Jrue Holiday, what they get back for him matters, because that kind of counts in this trade. That's kind of the added filter onto this trade. Do they get another starter out of Jrue Holiday? If you get another starter that's young on this team, that's going to be big. But I'll tell you what the biggest implication of all this trade is, that Dame Lillard did not get what he wanted. That Dame Lillard came out and said, but that's the thing, he didn't say. His agent said he demanded a trade, and his agent said he will only go to Miami. And his agent, Dame Lillard, didn't want to say it. And he learned the harsh lesson about player empowerment, that if you want to be player empowered in today's game, if you want to be the guy who makes those hard decisions, if you want to be the guy who has to say, I want to go win a championship and I'll do anything for it, you have to be the bad guy. You have to be the villain. And Dame didn't want to be the villain. He wanted to be beloved. He wanted to be beloved by Portland asking for a trade out. He wanted to be beloved in Miami. He wanted to be beloved in the NBA. That poor guy. What did Portland do for him? All they did was sign every free agent, every player that played for them. They offered him too much money to stay because Dame said, I need him to stay. What did they do? They drafted the guys Dame wanted to draft. What did Dame do? Never tried to recruit. Said, no, we don't want to do a big three. We'll build the natural way. They never were able to do it. And then he wants to come out and say they never did anything for me, which, you can go either way on. I think that they tried, but Dame Lillard put his hand in the pot too many times. You got to make hard decisions, and he doesn't want to make those hard decisions because he doesn't want to be the villain. Good for him. You're not the villain. If you go play in Milwaukee, you go up there, you suit up, and you're happy, good for you because you're not the villain. You are the good guy. You did what you were supposed to do. I don't mind that trade. If you say, hey, man, I think we've run our course. Portland, you go on. You drafted Scoot Henderson. You got the number 2 pick. It's best for both of us to move on. I'm fine with that. But the player empowerment, picking where you get to go, the fact that he didn't want to come out and say, trade me to Miami, because if he said it, he'd be in Miami right now. That trade would have happened. But Portland called his bluff, and they knew he wouldn't go to the media and say it. He wouldn't control the narrative. And so what did the NBA do? They pushed his cards in, and they said, if agents are saying this, we're going to start fining you. No, you can't do this. And Dame never went in. Dame never went to be the bad guy. You have to be the bad guy if you want that. LeBron James, when he went to Miami, tried to not be the bad guy, right? He tried to do a charity event to make sure everybody knew that he wasn't the bad guy. And what ended up happening? He was the bad guy. The rest of the NBA is not going to like it if you make a move that's going to hurt them. But if you go to Milwaukee to play with Giannis, I know there's teams in the East that are not going to love that he's over there, but they're not blaming Dame for that. He didn't want to go to Milwaukee. People in Portland will love him for what he did there. They're going to get a good enough haul back. They'll be okay with it. Teams in the West say, we got rid of him. He built a good team over there, but he's out of the West. He's not a villain anymore because he didn't want to be, but he doesn't get to go where he wants to go. So if you want to be if you want to be the guy and choose where you want to go, and you want a player empowerment, and you get to pick and you get to choose, and you get a James Harden, then be James Harden. Be the villain. Be the guy that everybody talks trash about. Go be that guy. If you want to be James Harden, Dame didn't want to. That's why he's in Milwaukee. Good for him. You don't want to be the villain? Don't be. Go win a ring in Milwaukee. Bring them another ring. Go show what you can do. And it's great. But don't complain when you're there. Just warning. Don't complain and say, I always wanted to go to Miami. I knew this wouldn't work out. Don't do that. But yeah, I don't think you will. I think Dame's going to be happy, and 10 years from now, 20 years from now, he'll come out and say, I got screwed because I was too nice. I think that's what he'll say. But that's just me. We're going to take a break. We come back. Actually, you know what? We're not going to take a break. We got to hit the big fat poll. Forgot to hit the big fat poll today.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
Got too worked up about Damian Lillard. Always fun. I just like talking NBA. I like talking college basketball. Can't wait. NBA's coming back in like 2 weeks. Something like that. Second week of October, I think we get preseason basketball. You guys are going to get sick of it. But we'll still talk tons and tons of football. Don't worry. College basketball coming back in November. Cannot wait for that. We're trying to go to as many games as we can go to and get as much coverage as we can for the Texas Longhorns. This season is going to be a really fun one for the Texas Longhorns. But let's get into the big fat poll of the day. The new text line number, 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776. The new text line number. Send it in there. If you got a new nickname you want us to put on there, a nickname, tell me what the nickname is for, though. I want reasons to put in my nicknames on these lines so we can talk to you. And it can be your name. You can be Mike from somewhere or Tommy from somewhere or Tommy Longhorn. You can be whatever. If you got a nickname that you used on the old line, we can change it much easier in the new system. So 512-447-3776. And let's talk Texas football. So we're going to get into recruiting coming up in the next segment. We talked yesterday, and we're going to talk more today about Kansas, and that this is Texas' first real game where I feel the defense needs to be the superstar of this game, that this Kansas offense can put up points. And if this Texas defense has shown that they are really, really good. They have a few flaws, but they're really, really good. I want to ask you guys, how many points do you want to see Kansas held to for you to consider this Texas to be a really next-level defense? I don't want to say elite yet. But I want to say this is a defense, this is a national championship defense. How many points do you hold Kansas to on Saturday where you can say, all right, I look at this team and I think, man, that's a national championship defense. What's the number for you? We said offense last week. We talked offense last week against Baylor. They got close to most of the numbers that we said. There were probably 2 muff punts, I'd say. Two fumbled punts away to hitting that number. What's the number that you want the defense to believe that this is a national championship defense? Hit us up on the new text line number, 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776. The new text line. Save it in your phone. Put your name in there. Let me know. We'll start saving names. We'll get into that. We'll get into more talk. Jerry Hamilton joined Aaron Hogan this morning talking Texas recruiting, some really good stuff. We're going to play that for you next right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 101.9 and 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. New text line number. It's brand new. Brand new. We're switching over to it. Gives us more options. I've already put some of your nicknames in there so we can respond to you guys by name so you know who we're talking to. 512-447-3776. Send in your stuff there. We got Oklahoma Greg checking in, and we got some mic checks. Yeah, we know you're there. Nate's there. Big Sheezy, Scarlett, Carrie from Georgetown, 420 coach, my man Chan, Kevin from Elgin, all these guys checking in on the new text line. 512-447-3776 is the new text line number. Hit us up there. I'm going to try and go find you in the other one and tell you to use a new number because that one I'm not going to be able to check as much. This one I can check a lot easier, and I can check from anywhere. So we can keep the conversation going. Even when we're out on remotes, when we're out and whatever, we can keep the conversation going. 512-447-3776, new text line number. We're asking you, Texas defense is going to be a big difference this week in Kansas. What's the number to say that this is the next level defense? That PK's got this defense playing at a high level against a really good offensive team in Kansas with a quarterback that is mobile with a lot of different options. They can do a lot of things. What's the number for you that you want to see if this Texas team can be a national champion at defense? They have a national championship defense. We know the offense. We want to see it get going too. We asked you about the offense last week. This week, what's the number for you? We'll get to that. We'll get to your answers. I want to play this clip, play this interview, though, from Jerry Hamilton. Some really good recruiting stuff because there is some big recruits coming to Texas during this week. We know that now we're past the Alabama week. Texas is ranked number 3. The recruiting news is changing. Sark knows what he's doing. Jeff Banks knows what he's doing. This Texas team gets some recruits. Here's Jerry Hamilton talking to Aaron Hogan this morning on Hook 'em Up, weekday morning, 6 to 11 right here on the Horn. It's Jerry Hamilton this morning talking Texas recruiting.
Someone who would know more about that is with us on the Vaqueros hotline. He is the advisor there at On3 Sports and, of course, Inside Texas. And great friend of our show, he's our buddy Jerry Hamilton. Jerry, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you guys doing? Yeah, I don't have KU number 1. Look, Arterio Morris, not there.
He's not?
Yeah.
Big loss for Kansas.
Another incident.
I hadn't heard that. Well, another incident for Arterio, the transfer out of Texas, and had not seen that. So that's a big deal. Where do you think? What's your prediction on Jerry and where Texas will be ranked? Not that preseason rankings matter. We know this is a brand new roster that we're all going to get to know. But where would you have Texas ranked, big picture, when we look about a month away to the start of the season?
Yeah, I would say around 13 to 15, 12 to 15 in that range. Look, I think the guards are really good for Texas. I think they're going to shoot the ball from 3 extremely well, like at the highest level Texas has since Abrams, DJ, KD, all those guys rolled through. They had some tremendous shooting teams. I think this Texas team is going to shoot 37, 38% from 3. So I think this is going to be a very high-level three-point shooting team with multiple guys who can knock down the 3 and spread the floor. I.T. Horton was a big late addition, in my opinion. And Max Abmas obviously is one of the best players in college basketball. Brock shoots it well. Tyrese Hunter, I think, will have his best season shooting the 3. So I think this is a team that has some guys that can really knock down open threes. The whole key for me will be the health of the bigs. I mean, Caden Sheddert's working his way back to 100%. Dylan DeSuit not there. I'm not sure when he gets back on the court. And so I think that's really going to hold the keys there. I think Zarika Nyemna was a really big pickup. I think he's going to be a very good third big for this team. Then you have Dylan Mitchell, how much he improves. I think it's going to be huge for the ceiling of this team. But I really like the guards on this team. I like the young guards too, Kendall Weaver and Chris Johnson. I think Texas has some quality depth at guard. I think they have some really good frontline starters. But for me, if the Texas team is going to reach its ceiling, which to me could be another second weekend team, it's going to be Caden Sheddert, Dylan DeSuit, how healthy they are, when they get healthy, then how long does Texas have to put all this together? Because I think they have some really good pieces.
Well, it's very similar to Chris Beard's first year when Coach Beard would say to us that, our challenge now is time. How much time does it take for everything to gel and come together with a brand new roster? But some veteran players, some young players. Appreciate Jerry Hamilton, not just football encyclopedia, but also basketball.
Yeah.
Jerry, we were talking about your upbringing. Your father was a football coach. Am I correct about that when you were growing up?
Yeah, correct. For about 40 years in the state of Texas. Friendswood High School, Nacogdoches, Pasadena, Adobe, some places like that. But yeah, so I grew up on the sidelines on Friday Night Lights, man. That was my upbringing. I was a ball boy, and we're actually discussing that on our On Texas Football YouTube live stream last night because somebody asked how nervous do you get during games. I said I was nervous as a kid, man, because like you're on the bus with the team, right? You're 10, 11 years old. You're on the bus with the team. You feel like you're part of the team. The most nervous I've ever gotten was being a ball boy on the teams my dad coached, because you really felt like you were part of the team. It was a lot of fun, man. I mean, my dad coached at Nacogdoches, guys, when there was the district was Lufkin, Longview, Pine Tree, John Tyler, Tyler Lee, Marshall, Texas High, Lufkin, Nacogdoches. One team went to the playoffs. Man, I mean, and for a couple of those years, one team went to the playoffs. It was an amazing district of talent. I mean, obviously two started going to the playoffs, but there was a time there where only one team from that district went to the playoffs. You'd have a team that was ranked top 10 in the state that might not even get into postseason.
That's amazing. That is amazing right there. And, of course, as you say that, the geography of East Texas, that's some long bus trips you're talking about. These aren't down the street kind of moves, man. You're going all through the piney woods and all through East Texas. That's a great story. All right, Jerry, let's start with the headline. And I know you've been talking about it since Sunday, but we haven't visited with you. The addition and the recruiting class of Brandon Baker, an offensive tackle, 5-star from Mater Dei High School. Of course, Sark's son, who's on this Texas team, is a walk-on, went to Mater Dei, so a lot of connection there. But huge get for Texas. Now have the number one ranked tackle prospect in the country for the class of 24, and also the edge rush prospect in Colin Simmons. That's pretty good to start your recruiting class.
Oh, that was a huge win for Texas with Brandon Baker. And to me, this recruitment really is a credit to what Sark and Kyle Flood have done at Texas. I mean, before they got here, Brandon Baker's not considering Texas. This was not the place to go as a top offensive tackle prospect from outside the state of Texas, right? I mean, let's just be real. That it wasn't a destination. That kid goes to Ohio State. Texas beats Ohio State, who actually finished second. Oregon third, where his brother played, and then Nebraska fourth. But Kyle Flood's resume for development was huge. Texas moving to the SEC, huge. Steve Sarkisian, as you said, 2 decades of relationships there at Mater Dei were big as well. You know, look, it's one of those things where, and now I'd be remiss if I didn't say Christian Jones is graduating. So a 5-star offensive tackle who plays right tackle for the number one high school team in the country sees a path to the field at Texas. If Christian Jones was a sophomore, that may not be the case as a starter, right? But it kind of everything fit. The father also has family in the DFW area. On the mom's side, they're distantly related to the Akanas. So Tassili Akana, freshman linebacker, obviously a sister on the national championship volleyball team and defensive specialist for Texas volleyball. So there were a lot of boxes checked, but I'll tell you the biggest one I really think, guys, is Kyle Flood's resume for development and where this program is going. I mean, kids see it. I mean, yes, Sark wants to have a strong footprint in Southern California. That's Mater Dei High. That's St. John Bosco High. You don't get those kids over Ohio State if you don't have a trajectory that a kid really likes. And he can say, okay, I can go get developed here. They beat Bama. I see what they're doing on the field. Oh, and I have a great chance to get drafted. Oh, and Kelvin Banks is a freshman All-American. You put all that together, and suddenly Texas it could become a destination for offensive linemen. Just think about where we were 3 years ago.
Yeah. Well, and for 12 years, up until 3 years ago,
yes,
on the offensive line for Texas, more than a decade of poor play up front, which really was paralleled with the success of the program, without a doubt. Nick?
Yeah, Jerry, this one's a little off topic, but what sports do you not follow religiously? Like, I mean that honestly, man. I'm always so impressed with your knowledge base, and like, I met you through Bobby, but like it impresses the heck out of me every time.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, what's funny is when I lived down in Jupiter, Florida. I mean, I'm a big golf guy. Now I love golf. I don't have time to play anymore, so I mean, I couldn't put the ball and play off the tee, on a good course at this point, but. Like when I lived in Jupiter, I used to do the Honda Classic PGA Tour radio show on Sundays there on ESPN West Palm. I love that. I mean, so for me, it's more college sports though, guys. High school and college sports. I love college football. I love college basketball. I loved golf when Tiger was at his height, right? I mean, great competitor. It just pushed everybody. It was great theater for me. And, he's my age kind of, it's one of those things. But living down there, getting to know a lot of those PGA Tour golfers. So those are really my sports. I'm not a huge pro sports guy. Obviously I tune in to watch KD and some of those guys, right? When TJ was in the league, as TJ, I think TJ and I are really good friends, so I'd watch everything, all his games. But I really love the college sports, and I do love pro golf. I'm not sure I love pro golf now, but I did love it when everybody was playing together on the same tour.
Oh, I had no idea you had the golf background.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have Jerry back on Friday to do a little Ryder Cup preview, but Ryder Cup tees off in Rome on Friday. Hey, Jerry, now with these 2 5 stars, as the foundation of the class. And man, with lines of scrimmage, pretty dang good. What's next for Texas? I know they got a bunch of guys coming in, and we were talking a little bit yesterday about, from the list I saw you guys post of who might be visiting Texas for the Kansas game. It's a lot of guys that they've already got commitments from, with some guys that are uncommitted, and even some guys who are already committed to other schools. I kind of like that, to get them all together and see if they can stir the pot a little bit and maybe flip some guys.
Yeah, it's going to be 2 big weekends in a row because Texas is the host team next week at the Cotton Bowl as well. So they get to bring in the recruits for that game, sit on the Texas side. But this weekend, I think DeAndre Carter, we were just talking about Brandon Baker. DeAndre Carter, the 4-star guard out of Mater Dei, teammate of Brandon Baker. He's coming in. He's an Auburn commitment. He's coming in with both of his parents for an official visit. This one's been scheduled for a while. He committed to Auburn September 3rd over Texas and Michigan State, but he had not made that Texas official visit. Now he comes in with his parents this weekend, so that'll be interesting. He's a 6'4", 340-pound large human that plays that is a guard prospect in the next level. I think what'll be interesting with this recruitment is I think Carter, he was in January 21st with his parents for one of the elite junior days. He really likes Texas. Does he see an earlier path to the field at Auburn, who's a couple of years behind Texas, obviously in a rebuild right now? So that one will be interesting to see if Texas can go over that hump. But I think you guys know this. Steve Sarkisian would love to add another guy out of Mater Dei. And then in 2025, they got a big-time running back, Jordan Davison, and receiver Marcus Harris, who Texas is all over. So this is a key recruitment for Texas, obviously. I'm really watching next weekend, too, guys. There's a chance Ryan Wingo is going to be at the Cotton Bowl, the 5-star receiver on the Texas side as a guest of Texas, right? So I'm really interested to see that game being in Dallas. How many of those Dallas kids are at the game against OU? I know we'll be talking about that next week, but I think this visitor list this weekend is going to continue to build. I'm going to throw a name out. I love to throw names out, the young kids for Texas fans out there. It's a kid, Jackson Christian, out of Port Neches Groves, offensive tackle. He's a junior, maybe a guard, maybe a tackle at the next level. He's coming in. He was one of the most impressive kids Texas had at their June 11th camp this summer, and they offered him. He's 6'5", 290 with an 82-inch wingspan. He's coming in this weekend for an unofficial visit. I actually put in an on-3 RPM pick for him to commit to Texas eventually. I'm not saying this weekend. I think Texas is in a really good spot with that kid. So some of these offensive line guys are off the radar a little bit early on, but I want to put Jackson Christian on the radar because I know how much Texas likes him.
Jerry Hamilton, Inside Texas, and On3 Sports, their senior recruiting expert, to say the least, also an expert on college football. What should Longhorns' biggest priorities be playing this Kansas team on Saturday? Obviously, this is probably the most dynamic offense they've faced to this point, certainly the best quarterback and most veteran quarterback they've faced to this point. What worries you about this game with the Jayhawks?
Yeah, I think there's a few things here that are interesting to me. One, Texas hasn't played their best ball at home. That's the first thing. But, look, they haven't played an opponent like Kansas to get their attention. I really think this season has lined up from a coaching perspective so well for Sark and his staff, though. And I think this Saturday is another one like that. They play Rice in the opener. Is 100% of their focus on Rice? Probably not, right? They're looking ahead to Bama. So they didn't play up to their standard for this season against Rice, probably. So Sark had a great week of coaching heading into Bama. Then they beat Bama. They come home for Wyoming. Did they play up to the standard they want to? No. Great week of coaching going into Baylor. Now you have the muff kicks, punts, so you got that from a coaching perspective. But Sark can sit there and tell his guys, look, we play great on the road. I want to see that at home. We haven't had – the way we play on the road, we have not performed like that at home. Here's our chance to go do this in front of our home crowd. 108,000 people are going to be fired up Saturday at 2:30. So I think from a coaching perspective, this season's lined up really well for Sark. Next week, you don't have to give a speech about anything, right? This week, it's a great opportunity for this team to prove we're as good at home as we are on the road, right? So Then Jalen Daniels is interesting to me because, Jalen Milroe was a guy that if he got outside the pocket, when he just started running vertically, he scared the whatever out of you, right? Because he has that level of athleticism. Jalen Daniels is different. He's not going to blitz you with speed to the edge or vertical speed. He's more like a running back. He's a patient guy as a quarterback, as a runner. He kind of sets up his blocks. He kind of sees things like a running back. He's not going to explosively make runs on you, but what he's going to do is make you feel like you're playing against a running back when he runs as a quarterback. So there's that. I think one interesting thing to watch is Kansas will run some option stuff. So Texas hasn't seen that this year. So early in the game, does it take the Texas defense a while to settle into that? Because you can practice against it, but you still haven't reacted to it in the game this season. So that they'll run a fake counter and come back option off the backside of that. There's going to be some things they haven't seen. I'll tell you another one for me is Jalen Daniels is a very good college quarterback. I mean, a very good player. He has a long windup. I call it dropping the ball below the water. Like he drops that ball down to his hip and he winds up the throat. He's got a quick arm. Jalen Ford got him last year. I think guys with a longer release, watch for Jalen Catalon, Jalen Ford, maybe to get a pick this week against those guys. Those guys that have the great instincts, that really study film, that can really read that quarterback, he's going to give them an opportunity in the passing game. But I think this game for Texas comes down to offensive, defensive line. Watching the BYU game, I think Kansas is a really good football team, but I do think Texas has an advantage on both lines of scrimmage, especially in the heat of the day in Austin, especially with Kansas only traveling 65 guys, right? It's a road game for them. Texas has an advantage. If the Texas defensive line comes out and stuffs Kansas on their scripted plays, then Kansas could be in for a long day. If Kansas has some early success offensively and maybe hits Texas on some things they haven't seen this year because they just haven't seen an offense like Kansas, then it could be a really good game. I think on the offensive side, if Texas offensive line holds up well and they run the ball, Kansas wants to play a zone. If Texas runs the ball well and could get Kansas out of their comfort zone defensively, I think Texas could have a really good day.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it. That's what we needed. There's a good overview. Thank you, bud. Jerry Hamilton, Inside Texas. You also see him on that On Texas Football channel on YouTube for Inside Texas all the time, doing great stuff with myself and Rod and Bobby Burton and the whole crew there at Inside Texas. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Jerry Hamilton. There you go. That's the breakdown you needed.
Some good stuff there from Hook 'em Up in the morning, 6 to 11 right here on the Horn weekdays. Jerry Hamilton giving you some great info about recruiting here at Texas and getting you a little preview for Kansas. We're going to get into more preview of Kansas in the 6 o'clock hour. Of course, more of your texts on the new text line, 512-447-3776, 512-447-3776. Send us in the text there. And if you got a nickname you want to put on the new text line, it's a lot easier for us to do than the old one, so we can know who we're talking to. Got some people checking in. We'll give you all some shout-outs, get you ready. We're asking you, big fat poll today. We're asking you, what number do you want to see for the final score for Kansas this Saturday against Texas, where you feel like this is a national championship defense? You just heard it there from Jerry Hamilton. There's an offense that Texas hasn't really seen. We saw the defenses Texas seen has given them problems. Can this defense play at a level that no matter what you show them, they're able to hold you down? What's that number you're looking at? Text that in, 512-447-3776. Whatever else you want to talk about, whatever else you want to got on your mind, maybe the Damian Lillard trade, maybe some Texas football, maybe some Cowboys, whatever you got. 512-447-3776. We'll get to your text coming up right after this break right here on the Sports Complex, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and thehornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. Getting to the new text line. Getting you your text coming in. 512-447-3776. About to read your text. It is National Dog Week, so we're playing dog songs and dog-adjacent songs all week long. Some AC/DC, giving the dog a bone. I could not put it in. You have to put it in, right? You got to put it in if you're going to do some AC/DC, doing Dog Week. We'll get to the text line. You can send in your dog pictures. I love them all week long. 512-447-3776. Loving the text. Also, if you got a name you want to be known on the text line, the new number, send in the name. I liked if you give me an explanation. I like an explanation there too. I know not everybody's going to be in there. We do get Nate checking in. We have a huge Suns fan now. We have 14 shooting guards, 1 forward, and 2 centers. I mean, you've got a couple of small forwards. You can play small forward. You can make it work. The Suns team is just kind of crazy all around. They're really banking on those 3 guys putting up 90 a night. It's kind of like what Brooklyn did that didn't work, but they're going to play a lot more games together, so it might work because that lineup in Brooklyn worked when they all played. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm not bought into it. It doesn't seem like it's going to work, but I'm going to be watching on League Pass. I'll tell you that much. We're asking the big fat poll question of the day. How many points do you want to see Texas hold Kansas to see if they're the next level defense, if they're a national championship defense? I'm going to tell you my number is around under 3 touchdowns. So anything in that range of under 20 points of you hold them to, even 2 touchdowns and a field goal, I'll say is pretty good against this Kansas offense. I think that's, not letting them get in and maybe 1 play over the top. I think that's okay. I'd really like to see him 1 touchdown and then maybe a couple of field goals. If you don't allow big plays over the top, you let them in the red zone. I'm okay with that. 17 or less is what we get here. 420 coach says 17 or less. I'm with you on that one. 21 and below, that's similar for Chan. I'm kind of in that world as well. Scarlett says under 17 would be solid. Around that number, that's where a lot of people are thinking, which is basically 2 touchdowns and a field goal. Is basically where people are putting it at, under 3 touchdowns. So you go under 3 scores, not 3 touchdowns. You don't want to have 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals either. So I like that. 17 is around that right range. Bevo Angel has Texas needs to hold Kansas to 13 points to be considered elite. I agree. I think once we get into the elite range, so not just a national championship defense where we say this defense can hold anybody in the country under 20 points, and Texas offense can always score 20 points against any defense. That's kind of where Texas, I think, that balance of Texas is under 20 for the defense, over 20 for the offense every single week is where you want to see it. So 13 points is now when you start to go, oh, man, now offense can have an off day and still win these games. Chewy from the Rock says under 17. I'm with you on that one. Holding KU to 21 points is the number for me. Shout out from TD. Lurch has if Texans keep Kansas under 23 on defense. I think a little bit lower than that. I like that you're giving them a little bit of space there. The Popcorn Man checking in. Popcorn Man, I like that. It's your nickname because when I got on the gridiron, make sure you had your popcorn ready. Didn't like any good nickname. It turned into a gamer tag. I like it. I'll give it to you. Jimmy the Gringo checks in. I got Jimmy the Gringo because I grew up in a Hispanic neighborhood in East Austin. I was the only white dude. It's also my Instagram name. So if you want to check out Jimmy the Gringo, if you want your tag to be on the text line, your Instagram handle or something else, maybe you get another follower. Who knows? Who knows what's happen here on the Horn? Keep it going. Let's read a couple more, and then we'll get to the break. We come back. We're going to talk more Texas and Kansas. We're going to play a little bit more sound about start getting ready for Kansas this week. So we start to get ready for that big game on Saturday. Kind of getting ready, figuring out how this defense is going to be able to figure out how to guard Jalen Daniels and what they're actually going to do. I think that's the biggest question. We'll get into that in the 6 o'clock hour. But we're going to keep reading your text. 512-447-3776. Carrie from Georgetown says, everyone runs the zone, even the NFL, talking about what Jerry Hamilton is. But a lot of guys, Nick Saban doesn't like to run the zone. Nick Saban likes to run man. A lot of people like to run man if you have the talent. Kansas doesn't necessarily have all the talent, so you kind of got to stick to guys that are a little bit better. But some teams, if you really have the talent, you may not run the zone as much. I think Quinn can pick apart the zone, but you're going to run through that as well. We had one that said 34 and then went to 17. I agree with 17 a lot more than 34. So we'll get to that one. Keep sending in your text names. We're going to take one more break before we get to the top of the hour, before we get to 6 o'clock. Just keep sending in. The new text line number, 512-447-3776. If you got to send in a name, send in the name, send in the reason, and keep sending in those scores. Where do you want to see Texas defense? What number do you want to see them hold Kansas to? Anything else you want to talk about? Texas football, Cowboys football, Dame Lillard, send it in on the new text line number, 512-447-3776. We'll be back with Hour 2 of the Sports Complex on a Wednesday afternoon right here on the Horn, 101.9 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hour 2, the Sports Complex on a Wednesday afternoon right here on the Horn. Keeping the text line rolling, a new text number, 512-447-3776. Send in, we were asking you the big fat poll of the day. How many points do you want to see Texas defense hold Kansas to on Saturday to feel like this is a national championship defense? We're getting around 17, so I like that number. It's just under. It's just at 2 touchdowns and a field goal. So that number is kind of where people feel it needs to be. Some people want it a little bit lower. Some people want it a little bit higher. But I like that number around 17. I like. That's basically under 3 touchdowns. You don't want to get beat over the top too many times. You want to have that tough red zone defense. That is a big thing. We need that red zone offense to continue to improve, but that red zone defense, you want to be able to see stop teams effectively, which is where you get the field goals. And they've been real good in the red zone because one of the major flaws this team has, or one of the only major flaws that's minor teams, or let's see, the only flaws this team has on defense, where it's a flaw where it can be exploited, but it's one of the only real flaws they have. Let's go with that. Is that pass over the top that you can switch onto the safety, and sometimes you can go beat a safety because you can get the switch right. So that's one of the things, but that is gone pretty much in the red zone. They've been able to figure that out in the red zone. So we've been asking you that. Big Sheezy says 17-21. That's roughly where you want to be. Yeah, it's roughly in that same range. I'll go final score 38-20 from Kevin from Elgin there. Yeah, I mean, that's a roughly, I think 38 we could put up, but that's one of those scores that the more you allow Kansas to hold the ball and, the more they score, probably the lower score Texas has, because I don't think they're necessarily going to be scoring quick. Texas defense, other than those big plays over the top, has kind of made you take what they give you and, move down the field. So some of these offensive scores aren't as big because, they are not able to get them out on third down. A mobile quarterback may be able to pick up some of those third downs. You want to push Kansas back on those early downs, first and second, to make it a third and long, make it a little bit harder for him to sneak out on the side. And then what we talked about yesterday, those linebackers, Anthony Hill, David Benda, Jalen Ford, kind of keeping him in check and keeping Jalen Ford staying in that pocket, making him throw hard passes and trusting your secondary. We get a 42-10. Some optimistic scores there. If it were fantasy football, I'd want 45 points from the Texas D on Saturday. Locksmith Ryan, Kansas 3, Texas 1,000. I don't think that's going to happen, Ryan. Something tells me it won't happen. But yes. We get Princey checking in. We'll go through that. We don't want to go too far into the Arterio Morris story. It is a little sad. It is sad that he's got suspended again. I'm hoping there's allegations of what's said, but he wasn't listed in the suit, or the allegations originally, but it's behind the scenes stuff. I'm hoping it's not as bad as it looks at first glance. It's sad to see him go. I know he wasn't thrilled how he was used in the offense his first season. He kind of felt he should have been used a bigger role. I liked the guy. I liked he was always nice to me when we were working sideline. He always put up a good, his defensive, like his basketball IQ and his feel for the game where he could just jump in. I always really loved. So I'm hoping for the best for Arterio Morris, but hopefully these new allegations are not something like they seem. Lucas checking in there. Hey, Patrick, as someone who's listened to spend the last 15 years driving pizza around town, listening to all the different iterations of Austin Sports Talk Radio, I'm glad you're still rocking after the recent shakeup. Love the new show and looking forward to my Rangers taking on your Astros in October. From Pizza Dave. I'll tell you, Pizza Dave, that is a close one now. I'll try and get into that before we get out, but man, that game last night, Astros really need it. It is a must-win for the Astros tonight, pretty much. I mean, it's not technically a must-win. They're not out of the playoffs, but it is a huge, huge game for the Astros tonight against the Mariners. But the way it's set up right now, too, that would be if Astros make the playoffs, get in that last wild card spot, they would. The way it's set up right now, if they were able to beat the Twins in the wild card series, they would then go on in the divisional series and play the Rangers, which I think all of us would love to see. I kind of wanted that to be the ALCS, but both those teams struggled down the stretch. So ALDS, I'll take it. I'd love to see that matchup. It would be so much fun. I know Rangers fans would probably not want to see us as much, but Pizza Dave would. Kansas can't score on D's. Thank you for that one. Piper under 20, so 35-17 is your pick there. We will get, let's see what else we got up here. 42-24, 42-10. Nita Scorigami from Big Papa. 16-38 is where you're looking at. I think that this number, what we're looking at really is around 17 is the number we're looking at. And that's kind of, for Texas, it's going to be the question. Can you stop them from going over the top, and can you stop them on third down? That's really what we're looking at. Keep texting in. 512-447-3776 is the new text line number. Send in your name if you want a name on there. I'd love if you give me an explanation for that too. We'll try and put them in so we can talk to you guys directly. You guys are killing it on the text line right now. 512-447-3776 is the new text line number. We'll keep getting back to those texts in the next segment as well. And a little bit later in this segment, I want to play some more audio of how Sark is preparing for Kansas. Because, again, this is a different opponent. With Alabama, I don't think you necessarily – the defense was, you kind of knew what a Nick Saban offense is. You know what he's going to try and do. You know you had to prepare for a Milroe to run, but I don't think it was quite the same as Jalen Daniels. Jalen Daniels is a bit more dynamic than Milroe. He can hit those little passes in the middle. He's a little bit more experienced. He's going to be able to know how to play you. In a young Anthony Hill, he's going to try and get Anthony Hill to overcommit. He is going to try very hard to get him to overcommit. So you need to be able to stay on your numbers, stay on your guy, and not get beat on this. Because those third downs, if it's 3rd and 8, and he goes and picks that up, that's a killer for this defense. Sark talked about on Monday preparing for Jalen Daniels. He was asked, how do you do it in the scout team? He was asked if Savion Red would be playing a lot of quarterback because of mobility. But that's the thing. Jalen Daniels is not just a running quarterback, and that's kind of where the problems arise.
Well, I think it's multiple. The thing that he does is he's a real dual threat. I think the natural thing is we think about the runs that he has for explosive plays, but he throws the ball all over the place, and they've got great schemes and concepts. It's not by any means is it gimmicky. They're running real pass concepts that stress your coverages, and then they have the run concepts with his legs as an added element to it. The +1 runs with the quarterback run. So he taxes you both ways. So it's not like you can just have a guy be a scout team quarterback that's a runner. You have to have the ability to throw it to give the defense a realistic look about what they're going to be going up against.
So you have to give the offense or the defense something to look at, because it's not just, if you just put Savion Red back there and he runs the outside, okay, we can stay in front of him, and that linebacker can come up and overcommit, and the cornerback can overcommit, and you don't expect that Jalen Daniels is going to pop the ball right over your head and get down and get another 17, 18 yards on a pass, and then you have to have your safety come over and help you out. And your safeties are going to be playing back because they're going to be trying not to get beat over the top. So that's really where the problem is, trying to prepare for this Kansas team, is Jalen Daniels can beat you moving and throwing, something you haven't seen this year, something you're probably not really going to see at that level for the rest of the season, unless you play Kansas again in the Big 12 championship game. Dillon Gabriel doesn't hold the same skill set. So you've had some mobile quarterbacks, but I don't know if they have the passing ability as much as this team does. Now, another factor we've talked about in this game, that this Texas offense especially, but the defense as well, has seemed at home against Rice and against Wyoming to not necessarily have the discipline needed, right? Like they haven't really been as disciplined as you would like to be able to see this team be at home, because on the road they've been great. Here's Sark talking about the penalties at home versus on the road, where you should be better at home, right? And this is something you want to see cleaned up in this game as well against Kansas, is clean up some of these penalties of the false starts that are going to put you behind the line, and especially jumping off sides, any defensive holdings, pass interference against Jalen Daniels. Plays may last a little bit longer, so you need to be on point on that defensive end to be able to stop the plays from Jalen Daniels.
Yeah, and really the one on the road was at the end of the game. That was really disappointing. Well, I think that goes back to mental intensity. I think that goes back to focus. You're going on the road, and we talk so much about, hey, we're going to shift, we're going to motion, we're going to do the things that we do. Pre-snap focus is really important, and poise and composure is really important. Well, we come home, and maybe as coaches we're not emphasizing that enough, and maybe we're taking it for granted, and the players are taking it for granted a little bit too much, and we're having some of those false starts and issues there. So, we got to get back to emphasizing that we have to use our pre-snap, motions and shifts and things that we do to our advantage, and we can't stub our own toe. So part of me wants to tell our fans to scream and yell Saturday when we take the field, so we got to focus in a little bit more. But all kidding aside, I think it's about, we need to place an emphasis on it like anything. And we need to make sure that we got the right mental intensity and focus in that area of the game and not take it for granted. Oh, we're at home, I can't flinch. No, we've got to focus in and trust our cadence and what we're doing.
And that's kind of the bigger message, right? You have to test your focus that the first two opponents, maybe that was part of it, that Rice and Wyoming, why they were a little bit closer, is you were so worried about the Alabama game. You're worried about starting Big 12 on the road in Baylor, not knowing before the season where Baylor was going to be, that you maybe kind of let up on those home games because you thought, oh, we're telling them on the away games, they'll know on the home games. Well, this is a big game. This is the biggest game you've played since Alabama. It'll be the third biggest game of the season as we can look at it right now, because it's the only other ranked team you're playing as of right now. K-State, TCU may jump into the rankings at some point. Someone else may. Who knows? But I think that is a big factor of really trying to keep the discipline going. We know they called the players-only meeting after Alabama and then still didn't have the greatest showing, but I think that's part of it. It's all part of this team staying on, that leadership being up. And one of the things you can talk about this leadership is not everybody on this leadership committee was here 3 years ago when Sark's first year and Kansas came in and beat Texas to DKR. Something you never wanted to see happen, right? But it happened, and some of these players are talking about it, and the press is definitely talking about it. We know Kansas a few years ago, much different team now, much better team now. But you have to talk about, well, what do you remember, and how much do you try to push in to this narrative that Texas is playing a Kansas team that came in and kind of ruined your season and really put a sour taste in your mouth? They're the people who got Charlie Strong fired. They've been a thorn in your side for the last few years. Lance Leipold has taken this team to another level. How do you teach your team to be focused and treat it like any other game, but also some of these players may have some residual hatred? And I'll tell you what's funny about this. I can't remember which one of these clips it is, so we're going to play both of them. But I'll tell you something that's interesting about Sark's mentality and this team mentality that has changed that I really like. Here's Sark talking about remembering losing to Kansas.
I think this much, I kind of referenced into the team this morning. We've come a long way as a program, and in a lot of phases. Schematically, the roster, the culture, the environment at DKR. We don't have to go backwards. We're going to keep forging forward, and we've got a lot of goals that we're trying to obtain this year, and we're trying to reach. We recognize Kansas is a good football team. But to try to make our guys feel bad for losing a game 2 years ago that it sucked for everybody, I don't know what benefit that is. We got to focus on the task at hand, and that's playing this Kansas team, because this Kansas team is a lot different than that Kansas team 2 years ago as well.
So this is what I like about this. Sark basically, last year, if you remember, there was a bit of the narrative at the beginning of that season was this is the revenge tour. We're going back on the Big 12, and everybody thought we sucked last year. Well, hey, guess what? We almost beat Alabama, and now we're coming in to whoop up on the Big 12. That was the narrative, the revenge tour. We talked about it. On Ball Don't Lie, we talked about, man, they're going on the revenge tour. They're going through the Big 12, and they're going to show up to those schools that beat them, and they're going to embarrass them. And what happened? They didn't. They won some games. They weren't terrible, but they definitely weren't that. And I think Sark knows, hey, man, that was last year. That was what I needed to pump them up because I knew they weren't ready yet. I could say Big 12 championship, but I didn't. Big 12 is I couldn't push bigger picture yet because I knew we probably weren't there yet. I want us to be there, and if we were, we'd start pushing it. But I'm not coming out of the gates doing that. I like that this year it's the John Wick. It's not revenge. It's not the revenge mentality of these guys beat us 3 years ago or last year, and we're going to go prove that we're better. I don't need to prove anything to you. I need to prove it to myself. I need to prove it to the country. I need to prove that we are the best team in college football. And we need to go out and show that. I like that mentality much better. Everyone against us. It's not just the teams that beat us. It's not that we need motivation against you personally. We need motivation for ourselves. I like that mentality much better about this Texas team going up against a Kansas. If you go into it thinking we got to show Kansas what's up, you're going to play to Kansas's level. And we all know we don't want Texas to play to the other team's level. Texas is a better team than Kansas. They have better players than Kansas. So you need to play to your level. And that's where I like the mentality change from last year to this year in that statement. No, this is not about remembering the Kansas game from 2021. This is not about getting revenge in front of our home fans. That's not about any of that. We're coming out to go beat you. We're coming out to beat you and beat every single team on our schedule. It's not a revenge tour. This is because it ain't about you anymore. It's about Texas now. And I love that mentality shift. I do love that mentality shift. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I respect about Kansas and Lance Leipold. And why I think that this game, why they'll have a good approach in this game, why they'll come at it. But he's one of the few coaches who I haven't heard come out as much and say, this is the game you got to circle on your schedule. This isn't that. I don't think Lance Leipold's doing that. I think Lance Leipold knows, hey, man, let's go win. Let's go win double-digit games. Let's go win 19 games this season. Let's go try and win get a shot at the Big 12 championship. We may not be able to, we may have a tough run against a Texas or an Oklahoma, but you know what? Oklahoma or Texas, they could stumble too. And guess who's going to be sitting waiting there? Kansas State, we can beat them. We can beat TCU. We can get in that Big 12 championship game. And then who knows what can happen? I think he's looking bigger picture too, so that's why I like Sark being in that position. Here's Sark talking about Lance Leipold and building Kansas, because that to me is one of the more interesting factors, as this game for a lot of fans means more than to these guys, which it means a lot, but I think they both have bigger aspirations than just this game.
Well, I think what's impressed me is, they're kind of similar to us in some degree in that, you're in year 3, and as I've touched on, we have players in our program that we inherited that stuck to and didn't decide to go in the portal and have become really good players for us, and I think have become really good players for them too. And so they become catalysts for you. I think they've done a good job utilizing the transfer portal. Like if you look at their defensive front right now, their front 4, which is really about a front 10. They rotate a lot of guys. They're all transfers. And so in this day and age of the portal, you're able to fill those voids and those needs that you may have on your roster. And I think they've done a nice job of that. And then I think they've done a really good job of implementing their schemes on both sides of the ball. They haven't said after year 1 when things weren't perfect for them, scrap that and we're going to go to a whole nother offense or a whole nother defense. They've stayed true to who they were as coaches, and now they've got veterans that really understand the nuances of their scheme and they play like it. So a lot of credit to them. As I say, I think very similar to us. I think they held true to who they were. They raised the players in the program and the culture that they have, and then they utilize the portal to fill the needs that they have.
That's really, to me, the biggest story is that this is two teams that are on very similar trajectories. Kansas just started way behind where Texas was. Texas was not a terrible program when Sark came in. Texas was a decent program. He kind of took them back a few steps to reload and change the culture and put it where he wanted to be. Where when we talk about the Broncos and you wonder why the Broncos are still struggling is because, sometimes you got to break it apart. And I don't know if Sean Payton necessarily thought that he was going to have to break it apart as much as he did. I think he kind of came in thinking he could implement his culture and everything else pretty quickly. Clearly, it wasn't the case. But you sometimes got to break it down to rebuild it. Sark's doing that. Leipold did that at Kansas. He is building that back up. But they have the same advantages Texas does, that they have had a similar system for the last 3 years. And Jalen Daniels is ready to go. He's coming into this game. Now, it doesn't mean that they should beat Texas. We're talking about Big Fat Paul on the text line, 512-447-3776. How many points do you want to see Texas hold Kansas to? That number to me, it's going to mean something at the end of the, it depends on how they are. Like if they get 3 touchdowns over the top, that's pretty worrying. But if it's a turnover, that's not a defensive problem if they get those points. So you weren't saying, what do you want to hold Kansas's offense to, right? To see if this is a national championship defense. I won't say elite, because elite I think is a lower number. I think elite, you're talking a single digit, 10 single digit. Like you're talking a 2-score game at most, and not 2 touchdowns. If it's an elite defense, even against a good Kansas, because Kansas, then that's what you're talking about. That's one where you say 17 for an Oregon, who is a real good offense this year. So I like that one. Couple more of your text. Big Mikey 817, join the conversation. Big Papa, I don't like Big Papa. I'm going to put your name in there. 16-38 is what you got in there. 16 points around what we're talking about. 38 seems like a high number. And I know it may not get there. I'm just more worried about time of possession, how many shots Texas is going to get. I think if they don't turn the ball over, no muff punts, 38 is very doable. They can do that against this Kansas team. But 16 is right where I know. The Big Papa, I never got everyone calling Papa John Shatner, Papa John. Never got it. You're a millionaire. I'm not a millionaire. I can't pick it as much. But if he were a man, and I went in for the interview to do the commercial, and they were like, and I'm Peyton Manning, and they go, hey, we want you to do this commercial. And you go, okay. So I just say, hey, John. And they go, no, call me Papa. And he go, well, your name Papa John's. John's the name. I want to call a grown man Papa. You know, I get it. I'd do it for millions of dollars. Peyton Manning didn't need it. Just call him John. At Farrell Tex says, 19. You want to scoregami there. What's the other number? What's the scoregami? Tell me the scoregami for 19 Kansas. And then what does Texas have to have? That is the unique number for Texas. CBA Scott has 42-24, 21-6 Kansas at half. You think Kansas starts out strong? That's a question of, if they put up 21 in the first half, I don't like that number at all. That is not a championship defense to allow 21 points and a half to a team that you are better than. That is, someone coming out and showing what they can do. I don't like that number. Hey, I'm Coach Rodney. The reason I go by the name is I've been a youth football coach for Rosebud Lot for 20 years now. Yeah, thanks, Coach Rodney, for teaching the next generation, starting to coach kids that played for me. And I was known as Coach Rodney to all of them. I listen to you guys on 1260 AM when I have bad phone service. And the rest of the time I listen to you guys through the app. Love the shows and love the horns, so keep up the good work. Hook 'em horns. Thank you for listening, Coach Rodney. I appreciate that. I may have to put you Coach Rodney Rosebud Lot. I may have to put you in as that just solely because I don't want any confusion with Coach Rodney Terry. We do have a coach that I respect a lot. I like Coach Rodney Terry a lot. So I may put you in as Coach Rodney Rosebud Lot just for our text line. I may have to put you in as that. No confusion. We get Texas 45, Kansas 10. Any more points by Kansas is not a national championship defense. I don't think it's an elite defense. I'm with you. I don't think it's an elite defense. I still think it's a national championship defense. I think Alabama defense, Georgia defense could allow 14 points in this game pretty easily. And those are national championship defenses. So 10, I think, is an elite defense. I think that's where you're talking about all-time great defenses. I don't know if we're there. I want to make sure we have a national championship defense. Locksmith Alex, the OG and Locksmith Ryan's boss. I would love to see 35-16, but feel like this could end up being a high scoring with Texas pulling away late, 42-28. It could be the case that Texas kind of pulls away a little bit later in this game. I'd prefer to think that Texas comes out and, learns from last week. Again, this Kansas the defense isn't great. I think you are going to be able to move the ball, but that's where it's going to come into. I don't know if you're going to be able to take shots over the top, especially in the first half. So you may need to get that red zone production up a little bit more, not rely on Auburn so much to kick the ball. I'd like to see this red zone offense step up in this game too. That's something I'm going to be watching a lot, is to see if this red zone offense for Texas can step up. I'm so glad that Texas is the number 3 team in the nation. I just don't feel it. Could be because it's been so long since they were ranked this high. Please help convince me of their high ranking. Phil, I talked about this yesterday. I talked about this on Monday. It doesn't feel like it, does it? It doesn't feel like they're the number 3 team in the country. Not at all. Not at all. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why. It's because all of us are saying, well, 4-0. Wait. I think we're going to feel like the number 3 team in the country if we win the next 2 weeks. Now, it's a lot to ask for. You got to beat a 24 Kansas, and you got to beat Oklahoma. But if you do that, I think that number 3 ranking feels a little bit better. I think we'll start to feel a little bit better about ourselves if we can get to that point in the season. If we can get to 6-0, I think that's where it turns to where it starts feeling. But I'm with you. It doesn't feel like it. It feels like it was too easy. Like normally we're number 5 and then we lose it immediately. This feels too easy, and I feel good about the team. I think maybe that's it. I feel good about the team, but then you say number 3 and you go, we got to beat everybody? But that's the John Wick mentality. If you're not first, you're last. Go get him, number 3. I'm with you, though. I'm with you, Phil. That's a difficult one. Send me a last name or a last initial, Phil. I don't want to confuse you with other listeners. I appreciate the conversation, though. Keep sending them in. 512-447-3776. We got to take another break. When we come back, we'll read some more of your texts. You guys are killing on the text line. Keep sending in those texts on the new text line number, 512-447-3776. And also, send in your nickname you want to be known by. Tell me why. I like having the reason why. If you got it, make it something that's, original in you. You can have it be a name, but maybe put an initial so we know it's you. Like Phil. Love you, Phil, but you got to, there may be another Phil that listens to the station. I don't want to confuse you two guys. I want to have you specified. So when I hear from you, I know who I'm talking to. That's what I want to do. When we come out and meet you guys, it's going to be a lot easier because we'll say I text in. We'll say I know you because I read your text every day. That's what we want to do with this new text line number. Keep sending that in. We're going to keep it going. More Texas football conversation coming up on the other side here on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex on the Horn on a Wednesday afternoon. We're getting into the end of the show today. I like that we've had full 2-hour shows all week. Rangers playing late this week. We got the playoffs coming up next week. The Rangers seem like they're going to be in. I think their magic number's 3 still. They're feeling pretty good. Play the Seattle Mariners the next series to wrap up the season, and we don't know what times those games will be. So I don't know if we'll be interrupted again, but this week not interrupted this week by the Rangers, and then season will be over, and we'll hopefully make a good run. Unless the Astros play them, and then I don't want to make a good run. You just gotta keep going there. Playing some Snoop Dogg, Doggy Dog World. There it is, National Dog Week. So we're playing dog songs, dog adjacent songs, all week long for you here on the Sports Complex. Tomorrow, if you want to go hang out with my man Aaron Hogan, Rod Babers taking a little bit of time off to say hey to the new baby. Congratulations to Rod and his lovely wife. I actually knew his wife. I worked with his wife at another radio station many years ago. So she's an awesome person as well. Love both of them. So happy for them. So congratulations to them for the birth of the baby. He's going to be out for the rest of the week. I believe he'll be a pregame on Saturday, though, at Mockingbird Saloon down by the stadium, down by campus from noon to 2. If you want to check out that. But tomorrow they will be at Little Woodrow's up at Palmer Lane. You can go say hey to Aaron Hogan. He'll be joining me on the show tomorrow as well, getting ready for more Texas, Kansas. So I love talking to my man E. He'll be joining the show tomorrow. Check them out. If you're up in North, though, you can go say hey to them at Little Woodrow's Palmer. Information on that at hornfm.com. Getting back to the text line before we talk a little bit more Texas, Kansas. We get my man Chief Engineer. What do a divorce in Alabama, a tornado in Kansas, and a hurricane in Florida have in common? Somebody's fixing to lose them a trailer. I like it. That's a good one. I feel like I've heard it before, but I was probably drunk, so it's okay. I'm going to get that. I do like your point you bring up, though, that Coach Sark has the opportunity to get Coach of the Year. I think, yeah, if you take Texas and they are undefeated, now that's going to be difficult. I don't necessarily predict that Texas will be undefeated, but if they are, you run the Big 12. I don't see how you don't give it to him. I don't know what story would have to be better. If it's Florida State comes through and has a great season, they're not going to give it to Kirby. I don't think they're going to give it to Harbaugh after the suspension and missing a few games. So, I don't think Ryan Day's going to get it now that he's all butthurt about Lou Holtz, an old man, telling him that he's good, not great, and he can't handle that. And he's got to go give an emotional speech about Lou Holtz, talking about the Notre Dame coach 7 coaches ago. I don't think he's going to win it. So there is. He's definitely in there. If he does well, and to make up for a guy that, was kind of disgraced out of USC, had to go, went to the NFL, went to go through the coaching car wash with Saban. It is. Now we are a long way away from that. We're 4-0. Could easily lose every single game for the rest of the season. Not easily, but we could do it. So we don't want to put the cart before the horse. Let's knock on all of the wood. Remember about wood sprites. You got to say what you say first and then knock it out of them. That is how the myth works, just for people. It's a pet peeve of mine that people knock on wood and then say what you're going to say. It's not technically how it's supposed to work. But that's why I'm a weird guy who hosts a radio show. But I appreciate it, Chief Engineer. Glad you got a name now. You've been texting in since day one here on the Sports Complex. We got you a name. We can communicate with you. Name the name now, not just a phone number. Feral Tex has 3919 is the number for the Scorigami. 3919. That is a difficult one, but I appreciate you finding me a Scorigami, Feral Tex. 3919. Look, I'm all for it. That's a decent score. 20-point win over a 24 ranked team. I'm all for that. Kerry from Georgetown says he lived in Georgetown for 40 years before it was cool. I don't think it's cool now, buddy. Hate to break it to you. I don't know. I think the people who think it's cool might have been cool 40 years ago, but that's just how it works. And I'm not cool either, so I'm not the judge of it anymore. I can't say I'm the judge of it. I'm not cool anymore. Female listener number 1 joining in. Do I need to rename myself as female listener number 1 since that's what the station dubbed me? Look, if you want to change it, you can. We all know you as female listener number 1. So if you want to change the name, it's up to you. I'm giving you that choice. I'm all for listener empowerment. I don't love player empowerment in the NBA, but that's why I love the trade today because Dame Lillard went to the Trailblazers and said, I only want to go to meh. They said, gotcha, Milwaukee, we got you. We're sending you right away. Not a huge fan of player empowerment in all cases. Sometimes I like it. I'm not always a big fan of big business either. So sometimes a fan of player empowerment, but definitely a fan of listener empowerment. If you want to change the name female listener number one, go ahead. But I put you in the system. You're a female listener number one until you want to change it. Phil going for Phil the Thrill. I'm a fan of that. Remember, we got a new text line, 512-447-3776. We can change the nicknames much easier. So now I can talk to you guys with a name, and it makes it a little bit easier. Good question here. Which player on Texas offense and defense has been the biggest surprise to you so far this season? That's a great one. If y'all want to chime in on the text line, if you're still out there, 512-447-3776. I like that one from Jello Cat. I like Jello Cat too. Solid name there. Just an all-around winning text there from Jello Cat. But that's a good one. I don't know, because surprise is, I think A.D. Mitchell surprised me in the spring game when we saw what he could do, but now once we saw what he could do, I don't know if he surprised me a ton in that. Gunnar Helm has had a really good season, so maybe that would be my guy on offense. C.J. Baxter has done about what Jonathan Brooks, I guess you could maybe put in that conversation, that I wanted him to do what he's doing, but I'm happy that he is. But I don't think there's any out-and-out surprise of somebody that I wasn't expecting to be a part of the offense who has come out and been a big part of it so far this season. I'm kind of surprised Keilan Robinson is not as big a part of it. I can throw that in as a surprise. I thought Keilan Robinson was going to get way more targets than he has gotten. He still might later in the season. I know he's doing a lot on special teams, but that is surprising to me. And on defense, I go David Binda. I think David Binda is having a great year. Byron Murphy, maybe. We knew he was going to be good, but I think David Binda and his story is what I'm going to go with. That I like what he brings because he's kind of a different player than what Texas has normally, and kind of, he's stuck around to be there. So I'm going to go with David Binda on defense. But a really good question there from Jello Cat. I appreciate that one. Feelings 35-17 from West Texas. Andy, I like that number. That's about where I'm going with as their Georgetown isn't cool. Georgetown isn't cool. It's only the fastest growing city in Texas. I'm not saying that. I don't think that just growing fast makes it cool. I think there's other things that make it cool. Just saying. I don't know. I'm not the arbiter of cool, though. I don't think it's a dumb comment. I'm just saying the people that I know live in Georgetown are not people that I immediately come out and go, man, I got to go to a party up there. Like South Austin was really cool to me in like 10, 15 years ago, because that was where every cool party you wanted to go at, every musician's house, every comedian, like everyone was partying there. And then North Austin started to get more, so that kind of took it over. Maybe that's Georgetown. I'm not in North Austin. I grew up in Northwest Austin. I went to Westwood High School. So I grew up in Northwest Austin. So I kind of have a bad taste in my mouth of everything up north just because I became a down under the river guy. So maybe it's me. But I'm not saying it's growing. It's a place to live. I'm not saying it's not, but cool is not the word I would use. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't spend enough time there. I don't know. But I appreciate everybody who's listening from Georgetown. I appreciate you guys listening. You don't have to be cool. I'm not cool anymore. I don't know. I was cool until I was like 27, I think. And then it just went downhill really fast. I think that's when it started to go downtown. Chief Engineer does say Baxter is the one on offense that you think is the most surprising. I think he's going to be good. I think Baxter is going to be really good. Jonathan Brooks kind of stepped up and took that one from No Cat. We got a Jello Cat. We got a No Cat. 35-13 on this score. And you were in the first graduating class of Westwood. Man, yeah, that's I was class of 02. If it'll put you where I turn 40 next year, I'm ready to party it up, get crazy drunk, and go to bed at 10 p.m. That's how cool I am these days. We're going to take one more break. I love everybody here on the text line, keeping the show going. It makes it much more fun when I get to play with you guys on the text line. The new number, 512-447-3776. I remember when this was the phone line. Guess what? It's still the phone line. We just don't take as many calls, but we're going to try and I'm trying to work it in. I'm trying to work phones into the show as well. We want to talk to you guys as much as we can. The show is just me in here, so I love having other people involved in it. The phone lines, we're trying to figure that one out. It will still be this number too. That's a phone line as well. It's everything now. We put it all into one. It's a new service. It all does all this stuff. Trying to get you as involved as we can here on the Horn. We want to talk to you guys. We'll come back, wrap up the show here, give you a little update, give you ready for the big, huge Astros game tonight. Rangers game's pretty big. Astros game is huge. Get you ready for that here on the Sports Complex, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex. Wrapping things up here. Last call here on the Sports Complex. Thank you, everybody, joining in on the text line 512-447-3776. If you haven't sent in your new nickname or the nickname you used to go by, what you want to be on there, send it in. Send us why. Make sure it's something that identifies you. Make sure it's something where we know it's not just a first name. It's Tommy or something. Tommy from something. Give us a little bit of something so we can recognize you. And when you come out and you come out to a remote or wherever we're in your part of town, maybe it's Georgetown. Maybe I hear it's cool. Maybe we can be there. Maybe we'll head up to Georgetown and say hey to everybody. We know we can say, oh, no, I talked to you on the text line. We'll know we can put a face to a name, and we'll have you all on here. That's what we're doing on the new text line, 512-447-3776. So send in what you want there. Appreciate everybody texting in, playing along. Getting ready tomorrow. Check hornfm.com for information. Aaron Hogan going to be out at Little Woodrow's at Palmer. It's going to be a fun show out there. Details at hornfm.com. He'll be joining me. I'll be at the studio. He'll be out there, but you can go say hey to him, have a drink with him, and all the beer specials, the big Bud Light specials that are going to be out there. Big game tonight for the Astros. Rangers and Angels play tonight. Dane Dunning taking them out for the Rangers. Pregame right here at 8 o'clock. Big game. Rangers, their magic number. They can win the AL West. They love to watch, Astros and Mariners beating each other up. They're fine with that. Astros tonight. If they lose this game tonight, the Mariners now control their fate. The Mariners now take the lead, and the Mariners control whether or not they make the playoffs and the Astros get knocked out in that last wild card spot. They will only, I believe, have to split the last two games of the series with the Rangers to still make the playoffs ahead of the Astros. The Astros do have the Mariners have the tiebreaker against the Astros. And so the Astros are then going to be playing Arizona, but then you have to sweep the Diamondbacks too to even be in that conversation. They're going to pretty much have to sweep the Diamondbacks anyway, but this is a big, big, big game tonight for the Astros against the Mariners. Framber Valdez pitching tonight for the Astros. Christian Javier gets pulled out of the game in the fifth inning yesterday. That game just goes downhill, some errors, everything else. It was not great. Huge, huge game for the Astros tonight. Big game for the Rangers as well. That's going to be 8 p.m. right here on the Horn. We're going to get you ready for more Texas football tomorrow. We're going to keep the text line going, 512-447-3776. If you haven't sent in the name you want to be known by, I'll keep putting those in tonight after the show. I can get it from my desk now. There's so many capabilities, what we're doing. That's why we're changing it up. I know it's a little bit of pain, but we're changing it to the new number. It's going to be good for everybody, right? So send in those texts. Tell me why you want to be known. Give yourself a good name. We'll have that for the next, 200 years of the Horn. So you want to have that right. Until tomorrow, though, be kind, be safe, keep your underwear clean, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow, 5 p.m., for more of the Sports Complex on the Horn.